I'm reading excerpts from Body and Soul, which is my second book. This one is pretty much, it's very different from the first book, Coming About, which was a memoir about a sailing accident. But this is really about, this is fiction based on some true things, but it's really fiction. I was once in the seminary way back, and this is sort of my imagination, seeing what would have happened if I had actually gone through with it. So I'm going to start with one of the main characters. Hi, Amy. One of the main characters named Luca and Brad, and they're only 18 years old, and this is their very first encounter ever. They're on a beach with their on a retreat, which is very huggy. If you've ever been on one of these things. All right, Luca starts. Oh my God, it's 4 a.m. I can't believe we've been huddled out here for 3 hours. Well, there's no sense in going to bed now, Brad replied. Why not wait for the sun to come up? The sunrise on the water should be beautiful. I turned to him and said, you know, I've never been awake for sunrise. Me neither. Okay then, let our very first sunrise be together, he said, smiling back at me. We pulled the blanket around us a bit more tightly, and I know, it feels like we've always been friends. I love you, Luca. I love you too, Brad. No other boy had said that so easily from my mouth. There was not a hint. My whole body was flushed with warmth. Looking at me embracing, I could feel the warmth of his chest and neck, but somehow hands gently caressed my back, and it felt so good. One of my hands held his head against mine, and my fingers were laced through his thick blonde hair. That familiar warmth in my chest grew. This had never happened to me before, and I was startled by its intensity. Stirring within me were feelings I had never imagined or knew existed. Strangely, they didn't scare me or raise any red flags. My body pulsed with desire, and I felt my heart rate quicken. Each touch was cautious, yet deliberate, as if we were waiting for permission. It seemed that time had stood still, and we were counting each movement with steady anticipation. Our cheeks brushed against each other, and I could feel the stubble of his unshaven face tickle mine. I breathed deeply and took in his smell, masculine and inviting. Rather than move away, our faces moved closer to each other. He kissed my cheek softly. When I kissed his in return, I let my lips linger. Slowly, our heads turned inward towards each other until we were face to face, our lips barely apart. Our eyes met. His seemed to grow wider just before they closed, and we kissed for the very first time. So that's the first kiss between Luca and Brad. But it isn't a straight out romance. This story takes a lot of twists and turns. So that's way back in 1980, and this next part that I'm going to be reading is from around 2015, 16 or so. They meet again, Brad and Luca, and their lives have taken very different turns. Two leather wing chairs were angled toward the empty fireplace. Photos of Brad and Wendy's life decorated their mantel. Their wedding portrait, a family shot which included Michael and his sister Marianne, and many others. Luca took his place across from Brad. He wasn't exactly sure what he was going to say, but he figured he'd be inspired when they started the discussion. You look good, Brad. It's good to see you again. Is it, Luca? Brad said, staring into the fireplace with a hint of bitterness in his tone. Then he looked directly at him. You always look good, and I'm glad to see you as well. His tone softened immediately, and he stood and poured himself another scotch. So how is it you want to talk to me about my son, Michael? I didn't even know you knew each other. I met Michael after the Mass in celebration of the LGBTQ community last month. He introduced himself to me after Mass. Yeah, I heard about that. What possessed you to do something so controversial? I mean, I'm sure you had to be careful and play it safe within the church. Otherwise, you wouldn't be a bishop right now. Well, since Pope Francis's more welcoming tone, things have begun to change. It was Pride Month, and I believe that outreach to the gay community is long overdue. The Catholic Church has caused a significant amount of pain to many people in our community. Your community, Luca, not mine, Brad said, his bitterness returning. Luca could sense that anger was simmering just below the surface. Look, Brad, I didn't come here to argue. Michael reached out to me after he came out to you. He was distraught. He asked me to help, so here I am. Frankly, I was surprised by your negative reaction to his news. Why in the world would I be happy about it? Everything's going to be more difficult for him. He'll have to fight for rights that straight people already have. People will call him queer and faggot. Luca could tell that Brad had had a couple of drinks already. Brad, you know as well as I that being gay or bi or whatever is not something one chooses for themselves. It's just who we are, Michael. Michael is hurting right now. It took a great deal of courage for him to come out to you, and he needs your support. Oh, I see now. You told him to come out to me, didn't you? Well, I guess in a way I did. I told him that hiding his true self from you would ruin your relationship. He was already distancing himself from you, Brad. Both of you deserve more than a superficial father and son relationship. He's your only son. He's not much older than we were when we were in love in college. I should think that you, of all people, could understand him. Can't you simply accept him the way he is, as a gay man? That's what you want, isn't it? It's payback for what I wouldn't give you. You wanted me to give up my life and run away with you. You just want to rub this in my face, you bastard. Luca physically recoiled from Brad's angry words. Just then, Michael burst into the parlor. Are you kidding me, Dad? All those homophobic comments I had to endure for the last 10 years, and now I find that you've been sleeping with the bishop? Hold on. We're not sleeping together, Michael, the bishop replied. Watch your tone, son, Brad warned him. This conversation is about you, not the bishop and me. How dare you burst in here making absurd accusations? Accusations? I heard everything, Dad. You're in love with him. Well, at least you were. So why is it okay for you and not me? You're such a hypocrite. I can't even look at you, Michael screamed. Wendy came flying into the parlor. What's going on in here? Why is everyone yelling? Calm down. Hey, Mom, did you know that Dad slept with the bishop when they were in college? What a self-loathing homophobe. Wendy's face hardened and her eyes grew narrow. What nonsense are you spouting, Michael? What your father did in college is none of your business. That's ancient history. It's not ancient history when he calls me a faggot and tells me how disappointed he is in me. I didn't call you faggot. Now you're making things up. Of course I'm disappointed in you. Your life is going to be a constant struggle, and it will be much harder for me to use my connections to advance your career. Are you kidding me? What is it, Dad? Are you afraid I'll embarrass you in front of all your rich friends? Will they shun you because you have a gay son? Or is it too close to home? Are you afraid of your own sexual desires? To think I feared you, longed for your approval all these years. All the while you were hiding from who you really are. You're pathetic. I'm warning you, Michael, Brad said in a low, measured tone. Don't push me any further. Or what, Dad? You'll disown me? Go ahead. Who wants a father who's ashamed of him? Who calls him a dirty queer? He sneered. I'm out of here. Michael stormed out of the parlor. Wendy ran after him and stood at the open front door, watching him fly down the driveway in anger. Michael, please don't go. Listen to reason, Wendy pleaded through her tears. Come back so we can talk this through. You know we love you, Michael. Don't leave. She let out a sob and leaned her forehead against the door jamb as she watched his car peel out of the driveway with a squeal. And you'll have to read the book to figure out the rest. So I'm ready for some questions or anything like that. Oh my God, thank you for putting that book in your cart. I really appreciate that. I'm trying to read on an angle here. Thank you, Drew. I practiced a lot. I was very nervous about reading. But it was fun. It was fun to read. It is difficult to create different characters' voices. I don't know if any of you have done audiobooks, and if you've read your own, or if you've gotten them done by other people. Thanks so much, Ross. I appreciate that from my fellow Lucifer fan. Okay, where the book is set and where. So thank you, Evan. So it's Body and Soul. It's set in the Northeast. It takes place, I grew up in Connecticut, so it's what I know. It takes place in the Hudson Valley around Poughkeepsie, I'd say. And then in Greenwich, Connecticut, and New York City. It's all in the New York metro area. Thank you. Being a teacher, I'm used to reading in classes. It's a little different when it's live. It's kind of intimidating to know that anybody can come in and, when you're a teacher in a classroom, you've got a captive audience, and they can't get away. So, so the characters are definitely developed. I'm not a plotter. I'm a pantser. I didn't know what was going to happen. Is that how you say it? Oh, which character? That's a really good. Which do I identify most with? Asked earlier about the time frame of the book. When is that? Okay, so two questions. One, the time frame is the early 80s, 1979, 1980. Their freshman year in college, second year in college. These two supposedly straight boys meet. It's back in the 80s. It was much more difficult for people figuring out their sexuality. Thanks, Anya. I appreciate that. Writing another book. Okay. Yes, I'm writing 3, as a matter of fact. So I identify most. Let me keep these questions in my head. I identify most with the character of Luca. And he's loosely based, his personality is loosely based on mine. I was always, a very expressive, sensitive guy, kind of friendly. My personality on Twitter is very much my personality. So, there's no, I don't know, what's facade there. Like, I'm kind of out there. I'm silly. I'm serious. I am very passionate about certain things. I love very deeply. And this is definitely what Luca is. And Luca, when he's, trying to figure out, he wants to be a priest, which is what I wanted to do back then. And thank God I didn't. But he's trying to resolve that. Yes. I definitely, as a pantser, is that how you say that? Pantser? I definitely didn't know where the story was going. I kind of knew what I wanted to do with their younger lives, because I kind of based it on a number of um, things that happened to me and friends of mine. Um, Coming out stories of all sorts. And but then as I went to the future, um, I had to make it all up, and I had no idea that the character of Luca was to eventually become a bishop. I had no idea that he was going to meet the son of his first love. Um, so, oh, really good questions here. So, Anya, you had asked if I'm writing other books. So, I have finished another book, which I'm querying now. I've been querying it since November when I finished it. And it takes the character of Luca. And so in this book, it starts with Luca as a college age boy, um, and then continues with him in his 50s somewhere. The next book is somewhere in the middle, and it's called, well, the working title is called The New Men, Loss of Innocence. And when I went off to seminary in Rome at the Vatican, uh, our new class, we were all called the New Men for the entire first year. It was very interesting. It was kind of like a fraternity of some sorts, but like they would call us the New Men as naive people and stuff. And so I, it's based on actual events, but the three characters are a composite of about 15 people who were new men. Some of them who were second year, third year, but most of the new men, most people that were in my class. And so while the characters are fictional, and they really are more than just Mario, they really are more than just the other people I knew. They became their own people. But the things that happened to them actually happened to different people in the seminary. And, the struggle, the hypocrisy, uh, especially with regard to the teaching of gay people. So there's a lot of struggle and heartbreak, and be a little too controversial for some of the bigger publishers. So, if I don't get much response within the next week or two, I'm going to self-publish like I have. Queer book is exactly. I am definitely one of queerindie.com, which you should definitely look at. So many of the people who are on this call or whatever, this live event, are listed as a great resource for us for everybody to find books that are LGBTQ plus and are not just of all sorts of genres. It's really a great directory. But so that's the book that's done. It's sitting there on my computer and ready to go. And I'm in the midst. I'm actually writing or doing my first set of edits after the first draft of this other book, which is nonfiction. It's called Letters from Italy, and it's based on my parents' love story. They didn't meet. This is the precursor to Match.com. They saw each other in a picture. My father in New York, having left Italy, my mother in Italy, southern Italy, saw each other in a photograph that they knew, and they corresponded for 2 years, and eventually they got married. So that's their love story that I'm writing, and it's I'm going to include some photographs in it, but I think I have about 20 letters and they're also going in the book. I sat here with my mom at this very table, and she's 88 now. My father since passed, but kind of translating those letters and then watching her tell stories. I mean, there's one moment where my mother's saying, she's reading her letter to me in Italian, and then she says, I was so young. I was so in love. Can you believe your mother was this romantic? And I was like, oh my God. Like, yeah, I'm getting chills. But, that's good. That's definitely a labor of love. So I'm really excited about that one. Um, and there's another book after I finish it, which I've already started. Um, I don't know I think the working title is Second Chances. Um, yeah, mom and dad falling in love. Like they were always very remarkably in love throughout their lives. I still remember them sitting on the couch, leaning against each other, as they grew older and, with a little glass of port or something like that. And it's just so sweet. They held hands all the time, um, well into their 70s. Um, Body and Soul, then The New Men, and then I wrote the first chapter of the sequel to The New Men, which is what happened to these characters who were in the seminary in Rome um, in their adult lives. And so some of that's going to be based on my been of 27 plus years, and some of it's going to be, not sure if that's creative nonfiction or fiction based. But my books tend to have a more serious tone to them. I don't know. I get big into reality. Everything is always tied up in a needle. I like to leave things a little unsettled because life is that way. Always, though you may fall in love and be together forever, you're gonna have struggles along the way. And if you don't, then you're not living life to the fullest, right? At least that's what I think. But lots of passion and lots of love. And the queer books definitely deal with the struggles of LGBTQ plus people. Um, since somebody asked earlier, am I still religious? Somebody asked earlier if, what do I do? And I guess somebody called me post-Catholic once, but I have a very deep spirituality, but my journey is my own, and that's a question for offline. Um, so, but I've always been very comfortable with sharing my struggles and my thoughts, um, and I always look for deeper meaning. Any other questions? I've been rambling on here. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, so coming about. I didn't mention anything about coming about. That is the first book I wrote, and which is really, it's not, the religious question is not an intrusive question at all. It isn't. It's just that it's one's journey. I believe is very personal, and I'm very open to have conversations, but those are one-on-one conversations. I teach. I don't know if most of you know, but I also teach ethics at a school, so I teach it to seniors. It's a required course. So I'm used to talking about journeys and how you struggle with what's right and wrong, how you formed your own internal compass, your morality, your own code of behavior, your own ethics. So that's who I am. I mean, I don't know. I'm silly, I'm crazy. I love Matthew Bomber gifts, and I love Lucifer gifts, Tom Ellis gifts, and anything that's crazy like that. It's passionate, it's struggling, it's loving, it's silly, it's playful, it's romantic. That's how I combine all of these aspects into who I am and into my writing. But back to coming about. Coming about Life in the Balance was the whole reason why I started this whole process. And Jim and I, my husband of 27 years, how does your writing and music meet or blend for you? Wow, that's a great question, Evan. Um, but the music part of it is a big deal. There's always some musical element in my books, and in Coming About, which is that first book, I won't give any spoilers. Oh, that's right, you're still reading it, Steve, my big buddy, Foghorn Leghorn. I won't call you daddy on this, but Jim and I left San Francisco out of nothing, and we just decided to buy a boat, quit our jobs, and sail across the ocean. So we live in San Francisco. We took our long journey, packed up our SUV, and moved out east, and then from there sailed to St. Thomas. And I'm not going to spoil it because Steve is on this, but suffice to say that it was traumatic. The good news is that we survived, but our survival was not guaranteed and was certainly tenuous on several portions of the journey. And I value life in a different way than I ever did. And it's part of the reason why I embrace all these aspects of me. There isn't a compartmentalization of, the person who is spiritual, the person who is silly, the person who is mischievous, and the person who loves bomber gifts and all that great fun stuff. It's all of it. It's all of us, But having escaped death on several occasions and still being fully intact, I value life in a very different way. So that's Coming About. And it took me about 13 years, maybe more, to write that book. And it couldn't be completed until I was ready. And in fact, at 10 o'clock, we're doing a virtual retreat at my school. My seniors, who I have taught all year, and we're trying to make this a very special graduation for the class of 2020. But one of the things that prompted me to write this Coming About was that at the end of this retreat, every year for the seniors in Sag Harbor, which is this incredibly beautiful place on Long Island, the tip of Long Island, in a mansion that the nuns own. Or little pieces of the story of Coming About and how it turned my life around, how it was a turning point, and that they're at a turning point in their lives. And at 10 o'clock today, I'm actually giving that talk about their turning points, and hopefully that they're turning this very difficult stepping stone for them as the class of 2020, as they've been isolated from their friends since early March. meaning they will. You know, and I think all of that is reflected in where I'm really writing about my parents' love story. Some things in Rome. So, I'm just writing about our real life struggles. And it's 9:30, and I want to introduce the next person. It's Ruth Sparks. Love you all.